Let's now get to our top story. We start with the U.S. President Donald Trump, who has threatened to destroy Turkey's economy if it takes any unlawful action in Syria. Earlier, the United States began withdrawing its troops from northeast Syria to make way for the Turkish operation against Kurdish fighters.
President Donald Trump is threatening to destroy Turkey's economy if it takes any unlawful actions in Syria. Earlier, the United States began withdrawing its troops from northeastern Syria to make way for a Turkish operation against Kurdish fighters. At the White House, Trump said he warned President Tayyip Erdogan that Turkey could find itself with a ravaged economy.
That was many, many years ago, and we only have 50 people in that area. That's a small sector, and I don't want those 50 people hurt or killed or anything. I don't want anything bad to happen to our people, and I told that to President Erdogan. I said, don't hurt any of our people get hurt. Big trouble.
Kurdish-led forces have been a key US ally in Syria against ISIS, but Turkey regards them as terrorists. Earlier, President Erdogan said his country is determined to clear the border region of terrorists and ensure Turkey's security. The SDF says the troop withdrawal is a breach of US commitments that will have a negative impact on the war against ISIS.
Well, the EU has warned Turkey against the military operation in northeastern Syria. The EU High Representative Federica Mogherini said the incursion would undermine the international coalition's fight against ISIS. Mogherini said the military action will hamper the UN-led political process in the region. The statement came in response to the U.S. pulling its troops out of northeastern Syria. The White House said Ankara will now be responsible for all ISIS fighters captured in the area over the last 2 years. Foreign Minister Javad Zarif of Iran discussed the issue with his Turkish counterpart Mevlut Çavuşoğlu over the phone. Speaking after that conversation, Zarif said Ankara should respect Syria's territorial integrity while defeating terrorists. Now, the UN says it is prepared for very close coordination with Turkey on that possible military operation in northern Syria. In an interview, the UN Assistant Secretary General Panos Mumcis said Ankara has made the necessary assurances on humanitarian issues. Mumcis praised Ankara's role in supporting humanitarian operations in the region over the years. He said Turkey's generosity with refugees needs to continue. We're going to cross over now to Turkey, where we're joined now by Mr. Ahmed Al Khatib, who is a political analyst. Ahmed, thank you for joining us here at Indus News. What are your thoughts, Ahmed, about President Trump's statements vis-a-vis Turkey's possible military operation in northern Syria? What do you make of the U.S. policy in that region?
Hi. Actually, I believe that Trump's tweets about what's happening in the north of Syria in a way that he accepted the agreement with the Turks and allowed them to do the patrolling in the area, and then he withdrew his forces. And then he just tweeted yesterday night speaking about that I will destroy the economy of Turkey, and he didn't follow what he believed in. What I guess that Trump is trying to create a large chaos between the Kurds and the Turks, the Arabs in the region. So the conflict is still going on. Even that he's still supporting the YPG, the SDF, as they are pronounced, like the Kurdish militias. But somehow he just left them to be facing the fight, the expected coming fight. So I don't understand actually what is the politics that Trump is playing with. But you can see that he supports someone and then he leaves them in the middle of the road. And then from my opinion is Turkey has the right to defend their own border, which is nearly 900 kilometers, while the U.S. or the EU doesn't help with the case of the refugees that's been displaced by the Syrian regime during the 9 years.
Okay, so Ahmed, I wonder, what are your thoughts on the rest of the international community's reactions? As you mentioned, of course, the EU has expressed concern about these possible operations there in northern Syria. So has Iran. But then the UN is saying that no, Turkey is actually cooperating and that the UN may very well coordinate with Turkey. What do you make of all of that? Is the international community sort of divided on this issue, do you think?
I don't believe that the international community can do anything unless that thing is liked to them. Like, the Syrian crisis has been established since 9 years, and they have done nothing. They couldn't stop Assad, even that he did 3 chemical massacres. And now, because Turkey is trying to protect their own borders, so that they don't like, so they're trying to stop and they try to do action on the ground. Why they haven't done anything before, like to stop Assad by killing those people and stop the whole crisis of displacement, killing, missing, whatever. So I believe that the UN or the AU, they work only when they like the project they work on. So it's so difficult to be explaining the whole story, but I believe that the AU will take action only when they found it is good to their side, and the same for the UN.
Very well, Ahmed. We'll leave it there at that. But of course, we appreciate you taking your time to share your thoughts with us here at Indus News. Well, 3 militants from the Kurdistan Workers' Party have been killed in Turkish airstrikes during a counter-terrorism operation in northern Iraq. In a statement, Turkey's National Defense Ministry says military operations backed by air power were carried out in the Ghouta region. The ministry says Turkey will continue to destroy terrorists' weapon cache and shelters. Over 400 Kurdish militants have been killed in northern Iraq over the past 4 months. Turkey holds the PKK responsible for the deaths of some 40,000 people in a 30-year terrorist campaign. Let's get to some other news now. Chinese tech companies have voiced strong opposition to the U.S. government's decision to add them to a trade blacklist. In comments to state media, the firms say the move will hurt U.S. suppliers and hamper efforts to improve human rights around the world. The U.S. Department of Commerce placed 8 Chinese technology giants on a blacklist yesterday, accusing them of human rights violations. It said no American businesses can sell technology to the banned Chinese companies without government approval. But a spokesman for the world's leading video surveillance company, Hikvision, said it respects human rights. The spokesman said Washington's decision could harm Hikvision's U.S. business partners and have a negative impact on the American economy itself. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has met Chinese corporate giants in Beijing as part of his 3-day visit to China. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, regional security, and the Kashmir issue are top of the agenda of Khan's visit. During the meetings, he shared lucrative business and investment opportunities in Pakistan with the heads of the companies. The Prime Minister will also meet Chinese Premier Li Keqiang and address the Chinese Trade Promotion Council today. Khan will apprise China's leadership of Pakistan's decisions to speed up implementation of ongoing CPEC projects. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, Planning Minister Khosrow Bakhtiar, and Chairman Board of Investment Zubair Gilani is accompanying the Prime Minister. Meanwhile, Pakistan Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa will join Khan in meetings with the Chinese Prime Minister and President Xi Jinping. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan, as I said, is in Beijing on that visit that promises to cement the economic relationship between the close allies. Founded upon more than 40 years of diplomatic and defense cooperation, the Sino-Pakistan relationship has in recent years focused on investment and trade. In consultations with decision-makers in Beijing, Khan is expected to discuss the next phase of the multi-billion-dollar China-Pakistan Economic Corridor program.
4 years ago, Pakistan emerged from its own decade-long war on terrorism. Tens of thousands of people had been killed and the economy was in tatters because the country had become unsafe for foreign investors. President Xi Jinping and his Belt and Road Initiative was meant to change that, a program designed to integrate China's economy with its neighbors and developing economies around the world. Visiting Islamabad 4 years ago, Xi said CPEC would become a showcase of the Belt and Road Initiative. He said Pakistan had been selected as a thank you for its central role in ending China's diplomatic isolation in 1972. The impact of CPEC on Pakistan's economy has been dramatic.
I think it's a stimulus for economic growth. when it will be in place, inshallah, by 2030 with ML1 there, energy project delivering, which will happen by 2025, and all the highways connecting Kashgar to Gawada, it will be great stimulus to our economy.
Back in 2015, Pakistan was suffering from a severe power shortage that starved export-oriented industries of electricity. Power cuts lasting between 8 and 12 hours a day were commonplace, making life miserable for everyone, particularly during the brutal summer months. By the time Imran Khan became Prime Minister in August 2018, the power supply gap had been plugged by CPEC projects.
When the initial phase was started, we were losing around 2% of GDP because lack of energy and agriculture and other infrastructure as well. So with the first phase almost completing, I guess that 2% has been capped.
The Prime Minister's latest visit to China coincides with the end of the early harvest phase of the 15-year CPEC program. The single largest infrastructure project, the 400-kilometre Multan-Sukkur motorway, will soon be inaugurated. Both governments are now in the process of negotiating an $8 billion revamp of Pakistan's dilapidated railway network.
In first phase, with certain sectors, I think the weaker links in the whole railway infrastructure would be taken care of, and then gradually it would move on towards a fast-moving railway.
Imran Khan is looking to steer the next phase of CPEC towards job creation and social services development. The key element is the creation of special economic zones across Pakistan. They would provide platforms for local businesses to form manufacturing ventures with investors from China and other friendly nations. The Prime Minister's visit to China comes at a critical moment for both economies. China has been hit by a range of punitive tariffs from President Donald Trump. At the same time, Khan has begun a program of governance and economic reforms. Once again, the close allies are working together to overcome serious challenges.
Well, 284 Indian academics, politicians and journalists have called occupied Kashmir's annexation and lockdown unacceptable. In a letter to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, they have asked for an immediate end to the communication blackout in the valley. The Indian intellectuals said the Modi administration's decision to deactivate Article 370 of the Constitution was taken without consulting Kashmiris. They asked Modi to roll back his government's illegal decision and allow Kashmiris to decide their constitutional status. They called on the Indian government to end the communications blackout in the valley on humanitarian grounds. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says Sikhs across the world have lauded the Kartarpur Corridor project. In an interview, Qureshi said the Sikh community in Europe and Canada has shown an overwhelming response over the project. He said Pakistan is preparing accommodations and other necessary facilities for their visit next month. Pakistan will open the corridor on the 9th of November, days before Sikhism's founder, Baba Guru Nanak's 550th birth anniversary on November 12th. Well, the people of Pakistan are commemorating the 14th anniversary of the catastrophic earthquake of 2005. 73,000 people lost their lives and over 100,000 were injured in the 7.6 magnitude quake. The natural calamity left over 3.5 million people homeless.
The 8th of October will always be remembered as a day of mourning in Pakistan's history. Millions lost their loved ones and everything else in a matter of seconds. 14 years later, people of the former disaster zone still vividly remember their suffering. Because of the gigantic scale of the event, the government couldn't cope alone. The people of Pakistan stepped in to shore up the rescue and funding operation. And so did the rest of the world, with a helping hand in search and rescue, and later, the rehabilitation of the affected people.
CIRA has completed 5,540 projects and handed over to the line departments. 1,300 projects are underway and 900 projects are yet to be started due to the paucity of funds.
The National Disaster Management Authority now marks October 8th as National Resilience Day.
We have now notified this day as National Resilience Day. We want to exhibit our resolve that this country and its people are resilient to different disasters. We have withstood mega disasters unknown in the recent history.
MDMA spokesman says the lion's share of reconstruction work after the earthquake has been completed.
So they have, as of now, completed 73% of all those conceived projects. 15% of the projects are ongoing and they are under implementation, while around 12% of the projects have been stopped.
Last week's earthquake in Mirpur revived unhappy memories of the 2005 disaster.
Well, in Afghanistan, a suicide bomber has killed 14 people and wounded 37 others in Jalalabad city. Officials said the attack targeted a bus carrying security forces. They said some of the wounded are in critical condition. No group has so far claimed responsibility for the attack. North Korea has warned against raising the issue of its missile tests at the UN. The ambassador to the UN, Kim Song, said raising the issue at the platform could be counterproductive. Speaking to reporters in Pyongyang, Kim said the move would strengthen North Korea's desire to defend its sovereignty. But he said it does not mean the launch of another missile. Kim said the United States is urging Britain, France, and Germany to raise the issue. The United Nations Security Council is due to meet behind closed doors today after North Korea test-fired a ballistic missile last week. The discussion was requested by Germany with the support of Britain and France. A UN racism expert has criticized the Dutch ban on wearing face coverings, saying the law has no place in a tolerant society. The UN Special Rapporteur on Racism, Tendai Achiyomi, says the ban reflects a wider consolidation of Islamophobia in the Netherlands. Achiyomi said the ban has no place in a society which prides itself in promoting gender equality. Under the ban, people must be recognizable in public spaces, so it applies to face covering helmets or hoods and is punishable by a €150 fine. The Dutch ban took effect in August after being passed by Parliament in 2018. The ban makes it illegal to wear face coverings in public buildings and on transport. On to the U.S., where congressional Democrats have subpoenaed the Pentagon and White House in an impeachment inquiry against President Donald Trump. 3 committees are demanding documents related to Trump's decision to suspend U.S. aid to Ukraine. The committee's chairmen say they are investigating the extent to which Trump jeopardized national security. Last month, the White House released a transcript of a phone call between Trump and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. The transcript showed Trump urged Zelensky to probe his political rival Joe Biden. Democrats are alleging Trump sought foreign help to smear Biden. Trump, though, denies those allegations. In Sweden, scientists William Kaelin, Peter Ratcliffe, and Greg Semenza have won the 2019 Nobel Prize for Medicine. The trio will share a prize money of nearly $1 million. Their discovery shows how human cells adapt to oxygen levels. Medicine is the first of the Nobel Prizes awarded each year.
Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine jointly to William Kaelin, Sir Peter Ratcliffe, and Greg Semenza for their discoveries of how cells sense and adapt to oxygen availability.
A replica of Captain Cook's ship has sailed to New Zealand to mark 250 years since the first arrival of the British to the islands. This anniversary of Cook's arrival has been met with mixed emotions by the country's Maori people. This report has more.
The shape of the world is attributed to explorers who supposedly discovered new territories and laid the foundations of foreign colonies. New Zealand, which was discovered by Captain Cook, saw his ship or replica return to its shores today. The Endeavour was greeted by anti-colonial protesters and spectators as it docked in Gisborne.
It's really important, I think, for us to come and just remember the whole story of what happened and acknowledge that. And so really that's what I wanted to just be part of the karakia and that this morning.
The journey has reopened old wounds for the native Maori because of what Cook's arrival in 1769 represents.
Since the landing of white men, there's been nothing but distrust, dishonesty, killing, murderous, you name it, we've done it 250 years later and here we still are to this day.
The British High Commissioner to New Zealand, Laura Clark, was amongst those who attended the ceremony.
You're not welcome here, go home!
Britain delivered what it called a statement of regret to indigenous Maori last week for the killing of 9 people immediately after Cook's landing. However, the Maori are still waiting for a formal apology.
Stock markets across Asia have surged in response to the resumption of trade talks between China and the U.S. Markets are up despite reports that Beijing is reluctant to sign the broad-based trade agreement sought by U.S. President Donald Trump. Resuming trade after a week-long holiday, the Shanghai Composite has gained nearly 1%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index is also up about 0.75%. This comes despite the U.S. Commerce Department's move yesterday to ban 28 Chinese firms for non-commercial reasons. Asia's richest bourse, the Nikkei 225 in Tokyo, has risen by more than 1% to lead gains in the region. South Korea's Kospi Index has also picked up over 1% after market heavyweight Samsung gained ground. Time now to find out what the weather is like around the world. And with that, you're all caught up. Thank you for watching this bulletin here at Indus.